coming on the air with something we almost never see. A tornado in the city of Los Angeles, confirmed in just the last couple of minutes. The dramatic video we're getting of this stuff flying through the air, roofs getting ripped up, California just not able to catch a break from dangerous and now deadly weather. We're going to take you there live. Plus, a high school student on the run right now after shooting 2 staffers. Police just giving us some new details on the suspect. We'll tell you what we're learning about this manhunt tonight. And with the Fed hiking interest rates to the highest they've been in 15 years, is there an end in sight? The semi-unsatisfying answer is maybe. What the Fed chair is saying and what it means for what you pay for what you need. Plus, late word tonight that Florida's governor plans to expand that controversial Don't Say Gay law, as it's called, to include high schoolers, too. We'll take you live to Florida with reaction on the ground and what Disney has planned. And in the original tonight, North Korea firing off new rockets, the U.S. and South Korea responding, and our team live in Seoul with an up-close and behind-the-scenes look at these new military moves. That's coming up later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie. We'll get to the weather in Los Angeles in a moment, but we'll start with that manhunt happening now for a 17-year-old accused of shooting 2 staff members late today at a high school in Denver. And in the last couple of minutes, Denver police have identified the suspect who is still on the run. We want to show you the picture that police have just released. They say this student shot 2 people at the school. One is in serious but stable condition. The other is in critical condition. Listen.
Several shots were fired, striking those 2 individuals. That individual then fled the school, but we do know who that individual is, and a search is underway to try to locate that particular individual.
Here's what else we know right now, that this alleged shooter was on what's being described as a safety plan, where he actually got patted down every day. And today, police say staffers found a gun during that pat down. The student fired several shots at 2 men in the building. What we don't know is where that weapon is, why this student was on that safety plan in the first place, and most urgently, where he is right now. I want to bring in Maura Barrett, who's following all of it. Bring us up to speed, Maura.
Yeah, Hallie, a very jarring look at what was being described as a safety plan, right? We do know that 17-year-old Austin Lyle is the shooting suspect that police are still looking for after the shooting took place this morning in local time at Denver East High School. The shooter fled the scene on foot, and they're still looking for him. The school has since been dismissed, students sent home early, and school canceled the rest of the week. But I want you to hear from the police chief, who during a press conference earlier today described a little bit more about the safety plan that had been put in place for the student.
Had never had a weapon on them before. However, today, during that search, which took place away from other students, away from other school staff, they did produce that weapon and fire shots.
Now, the safety plan, they said, was put in place because of, quote, previous behavior from the student. We don't know exactly what that means, if there had been any previous threats, but this was the first time that he allegedly, that we know of, brought a weapon to school. The 2 victims who are now in the hospital were school administrators, and they remain in the hospital as far as we know. But this is something that obviously is very concerning for the community and is concerning for public safety officials in the building. And so police are saying that they will, they're still looking for the suspect. There's a reward out for any information that could help find him, $2,000. Again, the 17-year-old student who ran away from the school and is still out and about in the community right now, Hallie.
And for the students, school's out for the rest of the week, right?
Yeah, Hallie, and the school is saying that they will increase the presence of safety officers on site. There will be 2 armed guards at the school for the rest of the year. But again, this is something that Colorado as a state has been struggling with for a while. It's important to note this is the 2nd anniversary of the Boulder King Soopers grocery store shooting. And this is something that the governor is speaking out about as well. He released a statement earlier today saying our students should and must be able to attend school without fear for their safety. Their parents deserve the peace of mind that their children are safe in classrooms, and teachers should be able to work safely. And this comes after a revamp of the Denver Public Safety Department to help provide safety in schools. That's why they're enacting some of these plans, like these safety plans, but it obviously wasn't something that could help stop what happened here at school today, Hallie.
Maura Barrett, thank you very much. Let's get to that other breaking news out west, out of Los Angeles, and something that we very rarely see. A tornado touching down just outside East LA. Look at this. You're going to see a bunch of stuff flying in the air. Look at that. You can see the funnel cloud kind of forming, or at least starting to. There are reports that the roofs are off multiple buildings in this area, Montebello. It's yet another instance of very intense weather in a state that's seen plenty of it. Too much of it, really, with a deadly and rare bomb cyclone that has slammed the state. Up north, you had the wind getting up to 75 miles an hour at some points, knocking down trees onto cars, streets, power lines. We're just learning that 2 people have been killed. Several other people were hurt. Power is out for more than 100,000 folks in that state. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is watching all of it. Any more tornado activity that we're seeing in L.A.? And I can't even believe I'm asking you that question because this is so unusual.
Yeah, 2 years ago since the last tornado in Los Angeles. They happen on an average about every 2 years. So it's not like it's, you know, the craziest thing ever, but it's pretty rare. They're pretty unheard of in this region. And let's pull the video back up and just show you exactly what you're looking at. Show you all those pictures once again, because the tornado's over with. There's no more threat of that happening. And just the fact that we had this. So what you're looking at here is obviously you can see the condensation area there. That's the lowering from the top of the cloud. We call that the wall cloud. If you look closely, you can actually see it rotating. You can kind of see it spinning counterclockwise there. And the bottom of it, there's not a lot of debris at that point towards the bottom. Not like the other video where you see the shingles start flying all over the place. It looks like a special effect from a movie. And this is the video I'm talking about. And I've seen aerials from these buildings, from the helicopters, the news helicopters. And it was a wood building, a wood roof, and it was almost like it was, you know, purposely placed there to create this special effect. I mean, thankfully, we haven't heard of any injuries or anything like that. Extremely rare. The National Weather Service will be down there to tell us how strong the tornado was, how long it was on the ground. But we can confirm this was a tornado within the Los Angeles city limits only about 2 hours ago. And you can see some of the pictures coming in. That's from San Francisco, by the way. This is where we had 64-mile-per-hour winds yesterday at the airport. We had 89-mile-per-hour winds in the mountains just outside of downtown San Francisco. One of the windiest days they've almost ever recorded, Hallie. So pretty incredible stuff with just our series of endless, amazing storms that's hit California.
Bill Cairns, thank you. I'm sure we'll be checking back again over the next hour or so. Appreciate it. So listen, are we almost at the end of these interest rate hikes that are putting way more pressure on your budget and on the banks? The latest word from the Federal Reserve is maybe, but it really depends on if costs start to go down and inflation lets up. This is the message coming from Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who says the economy really doesn't work for anybody when things are so uncertain.
The process of getting inflation back down to 2% has a long way to go and is likely to be bumpy.
The Fed's decision today to raise interest rates by 1/4 percentage point puts those rates at the highest they've been since Bob Barker still hosted The Price is Right back in the fall of 2007. And yeah, the markets are all over the place today. We saw the Dow taking a late dive, dropping 500 points, everything in the red. Brian Chung is joining us now. And Brian, Powell is telling reporters to listen to one word in their projections, that they're going from ongoing rate hikes to some rate hikes. Help us translate that into very plain English. Does that mean that these rate hikes are almost over? Is that good news for us?
Yeah, well, again, that was just kind of classic Fed watching where they just pick apart at individual words. But yeah, I mean, it was notable for, you know, the change to ongoing to some, and that's because it essentially provides perhaps an off-ramp to the Federal Reserve stopping at some point their interest rate hikes. For what it's worth, that came alongside projections that we got from the Federal Reserve that map out where interest rates could go based on each policymaker at the central bank, where they see potential rates going in the next few meetings. And the median member of the committee showed maybe only one more 25 basis point or 1/4 point hike through the end of this year. So this might be the second to last hike. But of course, all of this depends on how the economy evolves. And it got a lot more difficult between the last meeting and this meeting. Why? Because inflation hasn't gone down as fast as policymakers had hoped. And you're also throwing into the mix banking instability with a lot of the issues that we saw just over the last 2 weeks. So depending on how those things unfold, Federal Reserve could move its plans. But at least for right now, they do see at some point later on this year, perhaps stopping these interest rate hikes.
This is the first time we've heard from the Fed since the epic collapse, I think it's fair to say, of Silicon Valley Bank when it just failed. And Powell was really clear about that, saying, yes, in fact, its leaders failed. He felt or seemed confident that they were an outlier, but there was a suggestion that maybe there's going to be more of a spillover to that financial drama, that banking crisis that came out of the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah, but at the same time, what he said to Americans is that all your deposits are safe at the bank. And the banking system at large appears to be safe and sound. yes, Silicon Valley Bank exploded, but he said that was essentially because of failed management at that bank. And by the way, we have to underscore that the Federal Reserve needs to have a look at itself, too. And even Chair Powell seems to acknowledge that. He said that there's going to be a review that they do that won't be run by him. It'll be run by his second in command. That's Michael Barr, the vice chair of supervision, over how the Federal Reserve may have missed this in the first place. But he's really underscoring, hey, look, what happened to Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank may have been one-offs. The overall system seems to be okay. And those sentiments were echoed by Chair Yellen, Secretary Yellen over on Capitol Hill today.
Brian Chung. It is Secretary Yellen now, in fact. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it very much. So a Manhattan grand jury is now on standby. Yes, standby, after a kind of mysterious delay in what could be potentially the most historic indictment in U.S. history to come down, that of former President Trump. We don't know what's going to happen, but two sources are telling our team that the grand jurors didn't have to come in today. A day we thought they might be voting on potential charges in this investigation into alleged hush money payments Mr. Trump made to former adult film star Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump denies he did anything wrong, but we are also hearing now about another case involving Mr. Trump, one that experts think has more legal teeth. The case about how he handled or mishandled classified documents found at his home in Mar-a-Lago. A source tells NBC News a judge is siding with the special counsel, this guy, Jack Smith, who's investigating Donald Trump. Why? Well, the judge, in kind of a bombshell, says the Justice Department has enough evidence to establish that the former president committed a crime and may have obstructed justice. Laura Jarrett is joining us now. Now, the judge didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime, right? It was about the establishment of what the DOJ had. Talk to us, though, about why this is so significant.
So this is really huge, Hallie, and part of it is because the attorney-client privilege is viewed as sacrosanct, and here the Justice Department wants to pierce through that privilege to get documents and testimony from one of the former president's lawyers, Evan Corcoran. Now, the judge in this case in D.C. essentially is letting them pierce that privilege because of an exception known as the crime fraud exception. What does that mean? When you have legal communications with your attorney in furtherance of a crime, that's not okay. Those are not privileged, and that's what the judge is relying on to say they can get documents and testimony from this lawyer who has already testified in front of the grand jury, but the DOJ wants more, and that's what is at the heart of this. Also noteworthy here, Hallie, is the speed with which this has taken place, okay? The Trump lawyers immediately have tried to appeal this. The appellate court reconciled it very quickly. Now, of course, Trump's attorneys could always try to appeal it to the Supreme Court. Unclear whether they're going to do that here, but if they don't, that means the DOJ gets to move full speed ahead and get Evan Corcoran's documents and testimony, which, again, is massive.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. And it's so interesting because the case that you are talking about, Laura, right, the case around the classified documents is seen by legal experts as being, in plain English, less legally flimsy, right, on firmer legal footing than this case involving these alleged hush money payments and what happened with Mr. Trump and Michael Cohen on that front, even though that's the case that everybody's watching, staring at this courthouse in Manhattan all about.
Yes, all eyes are on Lower Manhattan. And part of the reason that case is viewed as perhaps a little bit more legally risky, more of a gamble. Certainly other prosecutors took a look at it and essentially passed. It's viewed that way in part because it's resting on sort of an untested legal theory, if you will. And as at least the reporting shows, it has to do with falsification of business records. It's not the actual payment of the hush money to Stormy Daniels. It's the way that it gets documented on the books of the Trump organization. Now, a lot of questions about exactly what the contours of that will look like, but it doesn't appear that we have seen a case in which someone has actually been prosecuted before for a campaign finance violation related to that falsification of business records. Again, we're going to have to wait to see an actual indictment, if one actually comes to pass, to see the exact contours of how they build their case. But it's just sort of novel legal ground. And so that's why people have pointed to the Mar-a-Lago case as potentially stronger. Again, a big if there.
And a huge question mark on the timing, right? If this indictment comes down in the hush money payments case, like, we just don't have a clue, right?
Well, it's hard to say because we know the jury didn't come in today. The grand jury was essentially told to stay home today. Query about whether they come in tomorrow. That's one of their normally scheduled days. If they do make an appearance then, it could be the case that that is the day it's charged. But again, open issue about whether they want to get more documents, more witnesses in front of that grand jury before they, in fact, charge them.
Laura, Jared, thank you for that. Appreciate it. We are just learning that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' administration is making moves to expand a controversial law you've probably heard called the Don't Say Gay law. This new proposal would basically broaden it out, right? It already bans schools from teaching about sexual orientation or gender identity in some grades. It would be all grades now. Right? So not just K through 3, that's what it is now. It would be all the way up through high school. This is a law, remember, that got national backlash last year, with critics saying it marginalizes the LGBTQ plus community. Although Governor DeSantis and other Republicans have defended it, saying it should be parents, not teachers, talking with kids about these topics. You know that Florida has been the sort of center of the universe when it comes to these kind of culture war issues that we see play out. And it's all coming as we get closer and closer to 2024 and a possible presidential run by Ron DeSantis. Gwyneth Paltrow is joining us now with more on this. Talk through this proposal because it's set for a vote next month in front of the Board of Education in Florida. Talk about reaction, where this goes. Do we think it's going to pass?
Right, Hallie. So originally we had that law that was approved by the state assembly. Now this is different because this is the Board of Education, the state Florida Board of Education, essentially changing the rule. And as you mentioned, now this would extend from 4th grade through 12th grade. And Hallie, when I reported on this, when that original law was passed and signed by the governor, I had conversations with parents about that law. Parents told me that although they agreed with supporting the LGBTQ community, they also agreed with the law that kept students from K through 3rd grade from discussing these issues on gender identity or sexual orientation in schools. But now that the Florida State Board of Education wants to extend it through high school, I think many of these parents might have a different opinion. And Hallie, it's also interesting to point out that, you know, we discuss this and then we immediately say this is Ron DeSantis' agenda. But think of the fact that the Florida State Assembly approved this, the Senate and everyone else in the House. And then you also now have the Florida Board of Education all supporting Ron DeSantis. So we're talking about state officials who are fully supporting this agenda. We know that they brought this change, as you mentioned, up for their next meeting. April 19th is when they are expected to approve it. And if it all goes the way it has been going with things that are proposed by Ron DeSantis, you know, pretty much anything that Ron DeSantis has on his agenda has been approved by whether it is the state legislature or other state authorities. So we do expect this to pass.
People might remember that back when this Don't Say Gay bill was on the verge of becoming a law, which it is now, there was pushback from big companies in the state, including Disney, after some back and forth. This was like a huge thing. DeSantis v. Disney. He's been using this on the campaign trail about taking away the special tax status for Disney, et cetera, et cetera. We now know, we're learning today, that Disney's going to host a big conference on gay rights in the workplace right there in Florida, according to some local reporting. It's obviously coming at a very interesting time now for the company, but also for Governor DeSantis.
Hallie, that's correct. So when you look at Disney, what happened last year is Disney spoke publicly against the law. So if Disney were to put out a statement right now and speak publicly against this change, it would be really interesting. And essentially, Ron DeSantis attacked Disney, and they made changes to that special district to which Disney belongs to. In fact, they've now changed the name. Now the district is called the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District. This is a name that the state came up with. Essentially, it functions like a county, and this is where Walt Disney is located. In the past, the company was able to appoint the board members, and this board functioned for the best interest of Disney, and this is how Disney World was able to grow to what they are now. Moving forward with the changes that the governor made and the state assembly approved, of course, well, the state assembly passed a new law supported, of course, by the governor that was signed. Now the governor has appointed the board members that govern this area. So Disney essentially has already suffered through a change, and they're trying to work through these new rules that they will, or new board members that they're going to have to work with as this new change to the law is happening. So we could say that what else can the state government do to Disney, right? They've already changed the district that they belong to. Initially, they talked, Hallie, about maybe dissolving it as a whole, but there was economic issues that would come from that. So I think that Disney has already gone through all the changes that can come from them opposing any kind of state government agenda.
Gwyneth Paltrow live for us there in Miami. Gwyneth, thank you very much. So the FAA is out tonight with a new warning, telling airlines basically step up your game on stopping all these close calls at airports. That's because we're seeing a whole bunch of these near collisions, right, where planes get really close to hitting other planes, like one we just learned about in only the last 24 hours or so in California, where a Southwest flight almost landed on the same runway where a helicopter was doing practice landings. There was what happened in Austin back in February, a FedEx jet nearly landing on top of a Southwest flight full of passengers. In January, we saw this with an American Airlines flight getting really close to crashing into another Delta flight at JFK. Still, the FAA chief says flying is overall amazingly safe. The big question is this new sounding of the alarm, if you will, from the FAA going to stop these close calls from happening? Let's bring in Mike Memoli because, Mem, that is the goal here with the FAA. Right. Where does this go?
So what the FAA is saying today is that when you crunch the numbers, overall, you're not seeing more incidents compared to past years. But what's concerning is that you have more potentially severe incidents. And that's what they're drilling down on in this call to action.
But that's so interesting to me. Does it mean, because it doesn't sound like, I don't know that we're hearing more about it, or are we because they are more serious? That before maybe it was 300 yards away, now it's like 50 yards away.
You have 6 so-called runway incursions just since January. That one you mentioned involving the JFK flight, the American Airlines flight, the pilots were subpoenaed as part of an investigation. So in this call to action, there's a lot of technical recommendations. The one that stood out to me the most has to do with what they call a sterile flight deck. And I think this, I had to look up what it means.
Yeah, put that for the normals among us,
This is about what happens when a flight is within a certain distance from the runway. And what you're essentially saying is that there are no communications that are supposed to be happening during that time other than essential conversations. I think that speaks to what they think might be responsible for some of these incursions.
Too much chatter kind of
thing. Too much unnecessary chatter.
But chatter between who? Like the air traffic control and the pilots?
And the pilots. The only communication going in and out of the cockpit is supposed to be about what is the essential at that point.
What also is interesting here is that this folds into sort of the bigger push that we're seeing from the government, the Biden administration, when it comes to airlines sort of writ large.
Last week we had this safety summit, right?
That's right.
You had Secretary Buttigieg, the NTSB, the FAA, all essentially saying we need to get back to basics. And what was really interesting about this is that they're attributing this to essentially the end of the pandemic as we know it. That flight travel, airline travel has
picking right back up.
And in the race to sort of meet demand, there are just too many flights out there. And so you also saw from the FAA today, interesting move. They're sort of trying it out in New York, one of the most congested pieces of airspace, which is we'll loosen up what they call those slot restrictions, right? We saw too many airlines wanting to keep flight slots even when there wasn't demand. They're saying we'll be more flexible about these if you're willing to maybe use bigger planes to carry more passengers, but just with fewer numbers of flights.
We'll see how this all shakes out, for consumers, for the people who actually fly, their ticket prices, et cetera. Yeah, for sure, ma'am. I know. And you're going to keep doing it for the next 2 years. Appreciate you. Thank you. So listen, TikTok is getting on offense tonight. Take a look. You're seeing, I think you're about to see live, a whole bunch of creators and a few members of Congress showing up on Capitol Hill tonight. There they are for a news conference that is set to begin in just about 6 or 7 minutes from now. They're trying to, now I don't know if that guy in front of us is a creator. We live with the live shot that we have, not the live shot that we wish we had. But the bottom line is that these people are showing up to say, hey, TikTok shouldn't be banned in this country. You've got the head of the company planning to testify in this very high profile hearing tomorrow. That's the case, that TikTok will pledge to protect U.S. user data, to keep the app safe, especially for kids, to stay independent from government manipulation, and to be transparent with access for independent monitors. And with 150 million Americans using TikTok, there's a lot on the line here, and TikTok knows it. Look at how they've ramped up their lobbying spending. Less than $500,000 just a few years ago in 2019 to more than $5 million this past year. Julie Sirkin is joining us now. What I have been so intrigued by, Julie, is the way that we have come on the show and talked so much about lawmaker concerns about TikTok, governmental concerns about the national security aspect of TikTok, and very little sort of like defense or offense from people on the Hill supporting TikTok. Well, now the company has its first big supporter on Capitol Hill, and that's Congressman Jamal Bowman, who's coming out and sort of pointing to the fact that all of these people use TikTok. You've got members of Gen Z who are starting to be more vocal about it, and now this big news conference with all these TikTok creators coming to D.C.
Yeah, exactly, Hallie. And all day, these TikTok creators have been basically parading the halls, going into the rotunda, posting videos of their time here, but also being strategic about it. They were a group of influencers who are small business owners who went door knocking, door to door to the Senate offices, door to door to the House offices, trying to get meeting with lawmakers to help shore up support and say, hey, we're not just making videos for fun. Some of us are on here trying to make our small businesses grow. And that is exactly the tactic they're also going to take tomorrow when the CEO of TikTok is going to appear before a congressional panel, Republican-led panel, to say, look, we have people up here who are relying on this for their businesses, and that's definitely a talking point he knows is going to get that attention of Republicans. But bottom line, Gisele Bündchen, the Democrat from New York, a top progressive here on Capitol Hill, he's so far the only lawmaker to join these influencers and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should keep TikTok around, because everyone else up here is staying far away from that talking point.
So then what is the expectation for tomorrow, Julie? I feel like we've been teeing up to this hearing for weeks now, ever since we found out that the head of TikTok would, for the very first time, be showing up near where you're standing to talk to lawmakers about all this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, it's a monumental moment. It's obviously significant. It's the first time he's testifying before a congressional panel up here, and he's doing so before a Republican-led committee, the Energy Committee in the House. So he knows the audience that he's trying to cater to. But here, the bottom line is that lawmakers, Democrats, Republicans, say this is a national security issue more than anything else. And they're kind of on the same page here. It's one of those rare things that we could see that come out in this bipartisan light in such a divided Congress here. And so the CEO of TikTok is going to say, look at our platform, it's growing. It has the buy-in of 150 million Americans, just showing how important it is in the American ecosystem. And he's going to say, we also updated all our policies, so all your national security concerns can actually go away now. Thank you. Let us operate our platform as we have been. And so I think lawmakers, though, are a little bit bullish. I mean, they totally expect to hear him trying to spin that argument. But lawmakers I spoke to on the Senate side, at least, like Senator Marco Rubio, said, listen, I don't care about the political implications that this may have. This is a national security issue, and that's what everyone should be focused on here, especially as China becomes literally the top talking point up here, not just among Democrats, but also among Republicans, too.
Julie Sirkin, thank you very much. Lots of headlines to watch tomorrow on the Hill, and tomorrow night, Congressman Gisele Bündchen, who we just talked about, will join us right here in our 6 o'clock hour, headlining our Newsmaker segment. That's tomorrow night on NBC News Now. Coming up, we're getting some breaking news in from our Pentagon team to armed Russian jets flying over a U.S. base. What we're learning in an NBC News exclusive you will see here first, right after the break. Plus, we'll tell you when France's retirement age is set to go up, even though that sparked some major protests, and why Gwyneth Paltrow's attorneys are fighting against having cameras on her in court. We're going to explain that ski trial thing next. Just some breaking news now, an NBC News exclusive with the top U.S. commander telling our team that armed Russian jets have flown over a U.S. military base in Syria nearly every day this month in violation of a 4-year-old agreement between Washington and Moscow. This is according to the general in charge of air operations in the region. Courtney Kuby, our Pentagon correspondent, has just broken the story for us. She has scrambled to a camera. She is joining us live. Court, it feels like, and your reporting indicates, there is the risk here is of escalation at a very sensitive time already between the U.S. and Russia. Talk us through it.
Yeah, that's right. So what we saw over the Black Sea last week is the perfect example of how something like this could go wrong quickly. The concern
and you're talking
here
about over the Black Sea when that Russian jet dumped a bunch of gas or fuel on this American drone. It was like a whole big thing.
Right. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't just the dangerous flying. It was when that Russian jet clipped the U.S. drone, causing the U.S. to have to down it. Well, that could have gone a lot worse, right? So in this case, nearly every day this month, Russian fighter jets, armed at times with either air-to-air or air-to-ground missiles or even bombs, are flying over this garrison or U.S. base in southern Syria called a Tanf garrison. Now, as you mentioned, there's this longstanding agreement between the U.S. and the Russians flying over Syria. They call it a deconfliction agreement, and there's a phone line that they use when they're concerned about potential close calls or when they may be flying near one another. But as part of that agreement, they agreed that they would not fly over areas where the other had ground troops. The U.S. military, according to General Grinkovich, who is the head of the component command there for all the airs and skies over that region. He says the U.S. is still adhering to that agreement, but the Russians are not. He says this behavior is provocative, and he's concerned that it could potentially lead to a miscalculation.
So what are they going to, and Courtney, again, this is truly, you have just broken the story. I'm looking through it now. Talk me through what they're going to do about it, right? Like, in other words, obviously coming out and talking about it publicly to you on the record is significant for the military. Are they issuing a warning to Russia? Are they having, like, where does this go?
So that deconfliction line, it's literally a phone line, and there's a colonel, usually an Air Force colonel, on the one line at Al Udeid in Qatar they call an equivalent in Russia, and they talk to them every single time this occurs and say, why is your aircraft over our airspace? What is it doing? They send up aircraft. So exactly what we saw, frankly, last week when the Russians said they intercepted the drone. Well, the U.S. does that as well. But they don't go anywhere near as close as those Russian aircraft were. They stay quite a ways back and just watch it. They shadow it, see what's happening, and then report back. But so far, even with those deconfliction calls, even with the intercepts, the Russians have not changed their behavior yet, Hallie.
Do you think, is there any sense they will?
No. I mean, at this point, no. The most recent one of these incidents was literally a couple hours before I spoke with the general on the phone today.
Courtney Kuby, it is excellent reporting. Again, it's such a sensitive time geopolitically for these two nations. Court, thank you so much for getting to a camera there at the Pentagon for us. Appreciate it. Let's take a turn to actress Gwyneth Paltrow and her attorney saying that they are already done. They are over all the cameras that are focused on her in court. You're looking at a live pic right now from the courtroom on day 2 of this very high-profile trial. Second witness of the day is on the stand here. But the whole thing started off this morning when Paltrow's attorney called out a new placement camera.
We have a new camera pointed directly at my client right there on the right.
They didn't like that. In this trial that's over a ski collision in Utah in 2016. Terry Sanderson, you see him on the left, says that Gwyneth Paltrow, you see her on the right, crashed into him and hurt him. But Paltrow says, no, that's not what happened. She says he hit her. A doctor today went into the details of how Sanderson's alleged injuries affected him. Listen.
The ability to function at a high level was lost for Terry.
Let's bring in legal expert Danny Savalos here. Danny, each side trying to lay out there in this very sort of he said, she said trial here, laying out the legal arguments. Give us a sense of how this is playing in court today.
This is just a straightforward personal injury case, something I'm really familiar with. And basically, the allegations are that the plaintiff says Paltrow hit me while she was skiing. And Paltrow in a countersuit says, no, the plaintiff hit me. This is going to come down to he said, she said, plus the witnesses for each side say. And the jury is really going to have a binary choice here. Either they believe the plaintiff's story or they believe the defendant's story. There really is no middle ground. And if they don't believe the plaintiff and believe the defendant, then all this testimony about the injuries and the whatever possible brain injury or neurological problems the plaintiff has will just be out the window because they won't be able to recover any damages.
Can you help us understand big picture why this matters, right? Because I can hear it in my head of people being like, Hallie, why are you telling us about this Gwyneth Paltrow trial, right? Like, it's interesting, but what's the news value here? And I put that question to you because, you know, is this something that could happen to somebody like you or me? Is this happening that she's getting sued because she's a celebrity here? Like, what is the sort of broader 30,000-foot impact on this?
Well, if you ski or snowboard, and Hallie, I shred, you know that most of the time there are not lawsuits filed over ski hill collisions. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, when you get that lift ticket, you sign away your life, whether you know it or not, and you waive any suit against the actual mountain. In addition, most of the time, individuals, and this is getting at what you just said, regular individuals are simply not appetizing to sue in a case like this, whether it's for assault or sometimes even for negligence, even if they don't have good insurance coverage. So in a case like this, where you have a very famous, very wealthy, what we call deep-pocketed defendant, that adds an additional incentive to bring the case. And candidly, this is not a particularly strong case, in my opinion, for the plaintiff. It's just a straightforward negligence case. Their demand is $300,000. If he really has traumatic brain injury, $300,000 is actually quite low.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much for both the legal analysis and the shredding analysis as well. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, says he wants his really unpopular plan to raise the retirement age to be put in place by the end of the year. It means that instead of being 62, you've got to be 64 to retire. Remember, Macron pushed this through without a vote in Parliament, and even in the face of a bunch of big protests in France. Macron says these changes need to happen in order to be able to keep paying for people's retirements. More strikes are planned for tomorrow. Number 2, Uganda just passed one of the world's harshest anti-gay laws. Same-sex relationships were already illegal in that country, but it's now becoming the first to ban anybody from identifying publicly as LGBTQ+, according to Human Rights Watch. It also makes some crimes punishable by death. The UN's top human rights official calls this bill deeply troubling and wants the Ugandan president to block it. Number 3, a pretty rare thing from the United States, a rebuke of Israel. Protests to changes to a law that would let new settlements be built in the northern West Bank. It is an indication of more and more frustration with the Israeli far-right government. The Israeli ambassador to Washington was called to the State Department this week. It wasn't like a formal diplomatic summons, but it's the first time in more than a decade that kind of meeting has happened. Number 4, a new study shows that sugary and fatty snacks can literally change your brain chemistry and create long-term preferences for foods that aren't quite as healthy. Researchers found that even small amounts of this kind of thing can activate the dopamine system that we have. That gives us the reward or motivation feeling. We crave it, we want it, we keep going after it. Thus, the cycle. Number 5, a super fan of Law & Order SVU got the surprise of a lifetime. So here she is, she's boarding a plane wearing an Olivia Benson shirt. And who walks by but Olivia Benson herself, Mariska Hargitay. She took a picture, which ended up on her Instagram story. They took some pictures together. Very cool. Good for her. When we come back, a behind-the-scenes look at some of the war games on the Korean Peninsula, why tensions are flaring up now. We'll take you live to our reporter in Seoul next. North Korea today test firing cruise missiles off its east coast in response to what Kim Jong-un sees as growing aggression, his words, from South Korea and its allies. That's coming just days after North Korea simulated a nuclear attack on South Korea Monday, which brings us to tonight's original. In-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. These latest missile launches by North Korea are in response to the biggest war games in the region between the U.S. and South Korea in 5 years. Our own Josh Letterman is there in the middle of the action, behind the scenes for these live fire exercises with artillery Black Hawk choppers and more. Here's Josh.
Not far from the North Korean border, U.S. and South Korean troops are practicing for a war they hope they'll never fight. Over 11 days, the two militaries training as one, firing live artillery, flying attack helicopters, and practicing amphibious operations. War games the U.S. says are defensive and no threat to North Korea unless it attacks first.
The U.S. and South Korea haven't conducted war games on this scale in 6 years. But after recent North Korean provocations, including just today, military officials say they are more important than ever.
Do you feel ready if a conflict were to break out here tonight?
100%, absolutely. In the middle of today's exercises, North Korea launching multiple cruise missiles into the Sea of Japan, a searing reminder of what's at stake. Last year, North Korea test-fired more than 70 missiles, the most ever. Recent imagery from North Korean state media suggests the North is using underground silos. Military analysts say that could allow it to launch ballistic missiles with no notice.
In the past, this was developmental testing, but now I think they're actually doing exercises. So nuclear warfighting exercises, ballistic missile attack exercises, bomber run exercises. So I don't call these developmental tests anymore.
After decades of tensions, the U.S. appears to have largely run out of options to deal with Pyongyang's growing nuclear threat. This South Korean commander says we'll establish a decisive battle posture to fight and win.
These military exercises are taking place just 10 miles from the demilitarized zone. North Korea calls them rehearsals for an invasion.
Nothing motivates a U.S. soldier to be all they can be more than sleeping 10 miles from an adversary. And when that adversary is firing ballistic missiles, it provides an incredible focus to this training.
This week, Kim Jong-un overseeing what North Korea called a simulation of a nuclear counterstrike against U.S. and South Korean forces. At the North Korean leader's side, his daughter, Kim Ju-ae, believed to be about 10 years old. Until recently, her existence was a mere rumor. Now, North Korea is putting her front and center, fueling intense speculation about whether she's being groomed to one day replace her father. Almost nothing is known about Kim Ju-ae, but South Korean intelligence believes she's being homeschooled and is an avid horseback rider. Yoo Sang-boom is a South Korean lawmaker on the National Assembly's Intelligence Committee. He says 8 of the 10 times Kim Ju-ae has been seen publicly have been at military function. He says with North Korea suffering food shortages, South Korean intelligence is picking up signs that starving North Koreans are growing angry at how the leader's daughter appears well-dressed and well-fed. North Korea experts say it's too soon to tell what role she'll play in the secretive nation's future, or what her public debut means about the North's military intentions, leaving the world once again guessing.
Josh Letterman is joining us now. And Josh, you know, for years we've heard about tensions with North Korea. This has been a pain point for almost every president. Donald Trump took a very different tack than, let's say, Joe Biden, right? Like two very different presidents, two very different attitudes. What is different now, if anything?
Well, military officials say, Hallie, that it is different. And it's perhaps not surprising that a lot of people are sort of tuning this out because it feels like it's almost every day that the North is testing some type of missile. But in the meantime, what is the North doing? They're testing their Hwasong-17 intercontinental ballistic missile, the largest that they've ever developed. They're using these underground silos that are so hard to detect a potential launch in advance. And in the meantime, they're also working towards a solid fuel missile, which could be launched really at any time because they don't have to load it up with fuel in advance. So those are very concerning developments in their weapons program. But in the meantime, the North Koreans say, look, you guys are the ones who are 10 miles from our border conducting these huge military war games, the largest in 6 years. That is something different. They call that a provocation. And just in the last few hours, Hallie, North Korea has come out saying that any efforts by the United States to try to get them to get rid of their nuclear weapons would be tantamount to a declaration of war.
More tough talk coming in there from Kim Jong-un. Josh Letterman live for us in Seoul. Good to see you there. Thank you, Josh, so much for that original tonight. Appreciate it. Coming up, why drug shortages could be a national security risk and what it means for doctors and patients. The new report you're going to want to hear about coming up. So if you've been noticing that your drugstore or pharmacy is out of some of the medicine you need lately, you are not alone because this new report from a Senate committee out today says drug shortages, they're way up. We're talking about stuff that people use a lot. The ADHD drug, Adderall. You've got Tylenol, kids Tylenol for cold and flu. That's something so many parents need. The antibiotic amoxicillin. This is stuff that matters, right? It matters if you have COVID. It matters if you have whatever. From 2021 to 2022, drug shortages went up like 30%. 300 different drugs nearly in shortage by the end of last year. That's tough for doctors and for patients. One senator even calling out the potential of national security risks because a lot of drug manufacturers have moved overseas, making the total supply chain tough to keep track of. Dr. Gwyneth Paltrow is joining us here. And Dr. Paltrow, we were just saying in the commercial break, I'm so glad you're here because you've been working on this issue for years, which says something given how bad it is comparatively now. Let me start with the fact that I think it's important for people to know. These are drugs that people need all the time. These aren't rare things. This is stuff like cancer drugs. This is stuff like drugs for your kids when they have the flu.
Yeah, these are common drugs and some that we take for granted. So it's not just everyday medications, which we do know about from the recent Tylenol, children's Motrin shortages, but important drugs. And what it does is it puts us at risk. When these drugs are gone, we have to choose alternatives that are not usually the best options. And that puts anybody, any patient and anybody at risk for infections, not treating their illnesses adequately. And then unfortunately, having these demands that are just unlimited so that we have a run on people getting to the pharmacy, trying to get medications when they don't need it.
Trying to get their hands on them just in case, basically, and stockpiling. Why is this happening? Is this a holdover from like pandemic era supply chain issues?
Yeah, so, you know, the supply chain issues are a part of it, certainly an incredible part of it. As you mentioned, about 80% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients for many of our common drugs are offshore. So they're in other countries, mainly China and India. And that puts us at incredible vulnerability so that when we have some of these supply shortages, we can't just quickly ramp that up. But I think many Americans would be shocked to know that even if we don't have the supply shortage of the basic ingredients, that we don't have visibility into how those drugs then get into different pharmacies' hands, into hospitals' hands. And so there's a whole kind of separate system that allows for manufacturers of drugs to distribute these drugs to the box retail pharmacies as well as to hospital pharmacies. That means a lot of shipping, a lot of equipment, and a lot of people in the middle. And all through those chains, we lack visibility into that process.
So is fixing that one way towards fixing some of these shortage issues?
Yeah, it's an incredibly important point, Hallie, that we need visibility into this entire chain, just from the start, but all the way to the end. And then we also need to have manufacturers play a role in telling us when they have increased demand before we get into a shortage.
One of the things that people hear a lot about, I think, when it comes to drug shortages is like Ozempic or Wegovy. Wegovy, some of these diabetes drugs that are often used as weight loss drugs. Right. That's a kind of a different category, right? Like this, what we're talking about here isn't necessarily like people wanting Ozempic and not being able to get on.
Yeah, technically, any drug where we have excess demand but not enough supply is a shortage. But what you just mentioned is really something that's been done because many people are using it off-label or not necessarily for what it's indicated. But I want to bring people back to what you said. On any given day, including today, we have hundreds of critical drugs that are in shortage, and that means people are denied those medications.
A huge concern writ large, as you have laid out. Dr. Gwyneth Paltrow, thank you so much for breaking that down to us. Good to see you. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Southern Bureau, the Arkansas Governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, just signed a bill that bans transgender people from using public school bathrooms that match their gender identity. Arkansas now becomes the 4th state with this kind of restriction at public school, and the first to put this ban in place this year. Other states are expected to do the same. Out of our D.C. Bureau, 2 men who escaped from a Virginia jail this week were arrested at IHOP. Officials say they dug their way out of the jail using tools made from a toothbrush and something else that was metal. The men are in custody. New charges are now pending in this Shawshank-esque escape gone wrong. Another one from our Southern Bureau here. A big congratulations to Mr. Pickles, the tortoise at the Houston Zoo, who's becoming a dad at age 90. Good luck. He and his wife, Mrs. Pickles, just welcomed 3 baby pickles. I'm going to say their names, aren't I? Their names are Dill, Jalapeno, and Gherkin. The baby pickles named Gherkin. Mr. Pickles is the oldest animal at the zoo. It's incredible because he is an endangered species, right? It's a radiated tortoise, endangered species. You don't see a lot of them having kids. Say what you will about their names. Still to come here on the show. Big supermodel, big football star, big divorce. Gisele Bündchen now breaking her silence for the first time, talking publicly now on how her marriage to Tom Brady ended and her potential return to the runway. Is she going to unretire too? That's next. So tonight we are hearing from Gisele Bündchen, the super famous supermodel, for the first time since her divorce from her very famous ex, Tom Brady, telling Vanity Fair exclusively that she didn't give Tom Brady an ultimatum to choose her or the NFL, saying in her words, what's been said is one piece of a much bigger puzzle, and that the whole thing, and I'm quoting here, is not so black and white. Okay, so let's bring in Emily Aketa on this. And Emily, pull back and think about the bigger picture, as I know you are for a second here. We're talking about, I would say, the most famous football player right now, one of the highest paid in the highest profile sport in this country, and an internationally known, also extremely famous supermodel, right? I mean, there is a bigger sort of business perspective that comes into play when you're talking about this, frankly, big divorce here. What else are we hearing from her? Because what's also interesting is she's been described in some quarters as did she, quote unquote, Yoko Ono Tom Brady? And now she's telling her own story.
Yeah, that's right. These are, I guess, the GOATs of their respective careers, both Gisele Bündchen and Tom Brady, long seen as this kind of golden couple. And after months of speculation, of headlines, Gisele Bündchen is now getting the chance to break her silence and set the story straight. One of the most circulated rumors we heard leading up to this was, okay, she gave Tom Brady an ultimatum. You either choose football or our marriage. Well, she calls that in this exclusive interview with Vanity Fair, she calls those characterizations, quote, very hurtful and the craziest thing I've ever heard. Also underscoring her support for Tom Brady, telling Vanity Fair, listen, I have always cheered for him and I would continue forever. And Hallie, she also didn't try to conceal her emotion. This was a thorough interview that took place over 2 days at her Costa Rica home. She broke into tears throughout the process. She talks about the heartbreak. She describes their split, compares it to death. But then she also goes on to say it's now a new beginning. It's like a rebirth. And so you get this sense that she's hopeful for what's to come. She talks about different things that she's hoping to pursue. One of them, we remember she retired from the runway back in 2015. She was the highest paid model throughout the entire world at points in her career. Well, she says she is not denying she's somewhat open to the idea of unretiring from the runway. So potentially that's something to watch there. She's looking into opening a wellness center. And then also she even mentioned potentially playing a Super Bowl. I mean, I could see her on the big screen. She does practice jujitsu, so things to come.
Super interesting here as it relates to something else that's newsy, and that is the collapse of FTX, of course, that crypto exchange run by Sam Bankman-Fried, who's now, of course, facing charges. She made ads for, she invested in FTX, and now she's talking about it for the first time, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the couple, they shot advertisements for crypto, and she even served, according to the article, as the head of environmental and social initiatives for FTX. She briefly addressed its collapse, saying, quote, "I'm no different than everyone else that trusted the hype." She told reporters she legally can't talk about the specifics, but went on to say she believed FTX to be a, quote, "sound and great thing based on what my financial advisors told me." Hallie, she hopes justice is served in that regard.
Emily Aketa, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. That's a wrap for this hour. More coverage picks up right now. We're coming on the air with something we very rarely see, a tornado in the city of Los Angeles. The dramatic video, look at it. This is all the stuff flying around in the air, roofs getting ripped up, California just not able to catch a break from dangerous and now deadly weather. We're going to have the forecast live, plus what we're just now learning about the high school student who's on the run tonight after he shot 2 staffers at school. What else we know about this manhunt? Also, just breaking into us now, an NBC News exclusive. What our team is hearing about armed Russian jets that apparently keep flying over a U.S. base. What it means for tensions with Russia at a critical time. And with the Fed hiking interest rates to the highest they've been in 15 years, is there an end in sight? The semi-unsatisfying answer is maybe. Just ahead, we're cutting through all this econ talk to explain what this means for your money. Plus, new details out of South Carolina on the unsolved murder of a 19-year-old that ties into the Murdaugh family. Our team getting a hold of documents, giving us some new clues in this case. And later in the show, a new report telling us more about the drug shortage across the country, with supplies down nearly a third from where we were just a couple years ago. The risks for the people who really need them later on. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we got to start with showing you something that we very rarely see, a tornado touching down in Los Angeles, just outside East LA. We want to show you some of the new aerials that we're just getting in. You can see it. Look, that's the stuff on the roof just ripped up. The tornado funnel cloud came through, picked it up. That car is all messed up in that parking lot. You can see more stuff coming off of this building here. Our local affiliate there is reporting that at least 1 person was hurt. This tornado messed up at least 5 buildings, according to the police department. You can see some of the funnel cloud right here starting to form. The National Weather Service is on their way now for an assessment here. Something we see a lot in Tornado Alley, much less frequently in Los Angeles, with yet another instance here of very intense weather in a state that's seen plenty of it. Too much intense weather, really, with this deadly and rare bomb cyclone slamming the state. Up north, you had the wind getting up to 75 miles an hour at some point. You can see trees knocked over into streets, knocked onto power lines, houses. We're finding out now that 2 people have been killed in this weather. Several other people were hurt. And power's out for more than 100,000 folks across the state. Meteorologist Bill Cairns has more for us. Very unusual, not unprecedented, but unusual to see a tornado in L.A. Was this sort of one and done? Is there any expectation for more?
It should be one and done, but we didn't exactly think there'd be a chance of a tornado today in L.A. We knew there was a chance of thunderstorms and possibly some hail, but let's show you the video and the pictures again. Okay, this is a small tornado. It didn't last long either. The National Weather Service will go investigate it, tell us how strong it was, but it just hit, the thing that would make it give it the most, largest special effects possible. It looked like it hit like a roof, and there was just shingles flying all over. It was a wood roof, and it just tore everything off the top of it, and it just gave us that incredible visual. You could literally just see the shingles just flying around it. Now you can see the shingles in the very bottom of your picture. They look really small because this was taken from a distance, but if you look up, you can see that condensation funnel and then the confirmation of the tornado where you see the debris below it. And if you look closely at the very top of your screen, you can actually see what we call the wall cloud and the mesocyclone spinning around what was causing that tornado. And again, we do think that this will probably be maybe an EF1, which is very unheard of. And just to be clear, the National Weather Service in Los Angeles is also confirming a tornado in Carpinteria in Santa Barbara County in a mobile home park from last night. And they said that there was an injury with that one, and that damaged about 12 homes. This one, we have not heard of any injuries in the one we just showed you the pictures of. And let me just give you a perspective of where it's located. So here's downtown Los Angeles. If you're familiar with Los Angeles, this is Dodger Stadium right up here. So only 10 miles from downtown, this is Montebello. And this is where we showed you that picture of the tornado. That's where we have all that of damage that has occurred. Again, Hallie, no injuries reported with this one, but the one from last night. Can you believe it? We're reporting on 2 tornadoes within the greater Los Angeles area with one storm. Pretty unheard of.
I know you said that it's unusual to even report on it all. It does feel like, is the risk pretty much over now that this intense weather system has moved on through?
I would be very surprised. There's still a chance, it's still only early in the afternoon. There's still the heating of the day. There's still a chance of some additional storms, maybe some thunderstorms with small hail. But I'd be really surprised if we see anything even close to what happened earlier. And, we should just be hopeful, and thankful that it hit, where it did. Middle of the day, it could have been near a school. It could have been near a shopping mall. It looks like it was a pretty industrial area.
Bill Cairns, it's a great point. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's take you to Denver tonight, where a manhunt is happening as we speak for a 17-year-old accused of shooting 2 staff members late today at a high school there. In the last hour, Denver police have ID'd the suspect, who is still on the run. This is the picture police have just released, the full alert, actually. They say this student shot 2 people at the school, and both of them now are in serious condition. Listen.
Several shots were fired, striking those 2 individuals. That individual then fled the school, but we do know who that individual is, and a search is underway to try to locate that particular individual.
Here's what else we know right now, that this alleged shooter was on what's being described as a safety plan, where he actually got patted down every day. And today, police say staffers found a gun during this pat down. That's when the student fired several shots at 2 men in the building. What we don't know is where that weapon is, why this student was on that safety plan in the first place, and most urgently, most importantly, where he is right now. I want to bring in Maura Barrett, who's following this one for us. Bring us up to speed.
An incredibly concerning incident, Hallie, and even more concerning that press conference that happened with police was this morning. They've been searching for the suspect all day, police releasing that crime alert that you showed as they're looking for 17-year-old Austin Lyle. They said that he's currently wanted for attempted homicide. And as you mentioned, the weapon, the gun that was used this morning, still has also not been recovered. So we don't know if the shooter still has that in his possession. Now, in terms of the play-by-play, we know that this happened this morning around 9 a.m. Police got a call shortly after that, and 2 adult males who are faculty at the school are now in the hospital because of it. And that safety plan is something that really stands out as we're reporting on all of this, because school officials say that this was because of previous behavior. I want you to hear more of the superintendent's explanation of the safety plan.
It's very nuanced, and it's particular, they're individuals, so it's based on past behavior, and that's as far as I can feel comfortable saying. This is common for all schools in all districts.
So we know it's common for schools to have a safety plan in place in situations like this, but we don't know why it had to be as specific as a pat down, or what exactly they might have been looking for, or what might have been said to trigger this kind of safety plan prior. And so we're looking to get more of those details, but they say that they can't share a ton because he is a minor. And then as for those 2 adult males that are now in the hospital, one is listed in critical condition, one is in serious but stable condition. One of them had to undergo surgery today, but they both are in the hospital right now. Luckily, paramedics were already on site at the school treating an allergic reaction, and that's why they were able to get that medical attention and transfer to the hospital so fast. But again, that shooter is still out and about in the community near Denver East High School, Hallie.
And you have to think that the community is just so unsettled right now, that students are feeling unsettled. No school for the rest of the week, of course, right?
Right, Hallie. There was an organized early dismissal for parents to come and get their kids at school today, and they'll be canceling school through the rest of the week. The school has said that they will have 2 armed guards on campus throughout the rest of the year. The Board of Education says they're open to conversations about increasing safety at school, Hallie.
Maura Barrett live for us, covering all of those developments coming out of Denver tonight. Thank you. Tonight we have new information on the status of an investigation into the death of a 19-year-old found dead on a road late at night 8 years ago, 15 miles from the house of now convicted murderer Alec Murdaugh. State police now say the investigation into Stephen Smith's death was never closed, but we're just learning that they've been looking into it as a homicide since 2021. Our Katie Beck talked with the Smith family's lawyer. Listen.
The state believes that there's 5 or 6 people that have information that could be useful or lead to who may have killed Stephen.
Smith was found dead back in July of 2015. At the time, an autopsy said the cause of death was getting hit by a car. But now, officials say that the state's highway patrol, who processed the crime scene, doesn't believe that that was actually the cause of his death, that it was actually a hit and run. There was new attention put on the case when officials were looking into the double murder of Alec Murdaugh's wife and son, Maggie and Paul. You remember some called that the double murder trial of the century. Katie Beck is joining us now. Katie, help us understand, right? What is the connection between Stephen Smith's death and the Murdaugh family here? Because we've seen just this week Buster Murdaugh and his representatives come out pushing back against what they called vicious rumors, et cetera. Help us figure out the bigger picture here.
What we do know is that in 2015, when investigators went out there and did these interviews and really tried to get a sense of what could possibly have happened, the name Murdaugh was brought up quite a bit, that a lot of people were referencing a relationship and some tie with Buster Murdaugh and Stephen Smith. Exactly what that relationship is or was is unclear. They were classmates at Wade Hampton High School. They graduated at the same time. It doesn't appear that anyone has any evidence to show that they were close friends or that they spent a lot of time together. But there has certainly been a lot of inferences made that he was involved somehow in this case. Buster Murdaugh put out an emphatic denial earlier this week on Monday, saying that he had nothing to do with it. These are vicious rumors, that he feels like he's been targeted and harassed, and that he's tried to live a private life and grieve for his mother and his brother and the incarceration of his father, but that this has been plaguing him, and he wanted to get out there and put on the record that he feels for the Smith family and that this was a tragic death he had nothing to do with.
NBC News also obtained some documents, more of them, from the early investigation by police into Smith's death. What are we learning from those?
Yeah, we just returned a FOIA request today, Hallie, with a lot of information, the original case files from 2015, to look at exactly what investigators were dealing with at that time. We know now that this case has been reclassified from vehicular manslaughter to homicide. So what was the discrepancy? And I think when you break it down in those documents, it comes down to the medical examiner's autopsy report. And at the time, there was great pushback between investigators and the medical examiner, who was standing by her claim that this might have happened from a mirror on a vehicle passing by. The investigators at the scene are saying, we don't see any skid marks, we don't see any glass, we don't see any indication of paint on the road, anything that we normally see. These are State Highway Patrol investigators. They investigate accidents every day, and they were saying, this really doesn't look like a hit and run to us. And they actually questioned the medical examiner. There are some details in these reports of how those conversations went, and she basically said because the body was found in the road, their report says that was enough to classify it that way. Later, as you stated, in 2021, when investigators were out there at the Moselle property investigating the death of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh, they came upon new information. So someone said to them, hey, you may want to look back into this case file. They say when they looked back at the case file and they saw how vehement investigators were about the evidence and about the fact that this was misclassified, they decided at that point in 2021 to reopen this case as a homicide investigation, and they say it has been ongoing since. They did issue an update today saying they are making significant progress and that this remains an active investigation. Sandy Smith's lawyer says that he has spoken to the head of SLED and that they are going to be collaborating, that this case is a high priority for them, and that as he goes through his independent review and potentially a new autopsy, SLED will be assisting and learning from him as well.
Katie Beck, there are a lot of pieces to this, a lot of layers to this. Thank you for being all over for us, and I appreciate it. Let's get to some breaking news now on an NBC News exclusive. A top U.S. military commander telling our Pentagon team that armed Russian jets have flown over an American base in Syria basically every day this month, something that violates this 4-year-old agreement between the U.S. and Russia. I want to, by the way, this general in charge of air operations says that these Russian planes flew over the base something like 25 times this month. They didn't do it at all in February, but flew over 14 times in January. It's being called a substantial increase, and that this is creating, I'm quoting here, an uncomfortable situation. Our Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kuby is on top of this one. Here's why this matters, Courtney, because at this key moment in the relationship between the U.S. and Russia, given what Russia's doing in Ukraine, this represents the potential for a risk of escalation now.
Exactly. And so, and one of the key questions that I had when I spoke with General Grinkovich today is, why now? You know, as you mentioned, there were 0 incidents where Russian jets flew over Tanf garrison. It's a U.S. military installation in southern Syria, not too far from the border with Jordan. There were 0 incidents in February. Why have there been 25 in March? And the reality is, he said, look, the Russians don't think the U.S. military should be there in Syria, so this may be an effort to put pressure on the U.S. military presence there. But as for why now, he simply didn't have an answer. They just do not know. The U.S. has been putting pressure back on the Russians in the form of phone calls, the deconfliction line that the U.S. military shares with the Russian military. Every single time there's one of these overflights, the U.S. military calls to the Russian military, protests the situation, but the Russians so far have not been changing their behavior, Hallie.
What is going to get the Russians to change their behavior, Courtney? I know that's the billion-dollar question here, but given everything that you've laid out, given what we saw over the Black Sea with that drone that you mentioned, what do Americans do here?
And that was my question as well, is what could be the next step? So there's options that still have not been taken. In the diplomatic world, they could demarche Russia. They could, you know, a formal diplomatic protest. But keep in mind that that does not necessarily mean that the Russians would change their behavior, because their side of the story, according to General Grinkovich, is that they don't recognize the airspace around a Tanf garrison as U.S. airspace. They don't recognize it as a place they're not supposed to fly. Now, the U.S. and the Russians, when they first came to an agreement about how they would operate in the skies over Syria, agreed that they wouldn't fly over one another's ground forces. Well, clearly the U.S. has had a presence there for years now. So this seems to be a deviation from where the Russians were literally only a matter of months ago, when they recognized that as U.S. airspace and weren't flying over it.
Courtney Kube live for us at the Pentagon with that key reporting here late tonight. Court, thank you very much. So listen, I want to show you some video right here of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. It's just coming into us. We're going to show it to you. He's walking out of a courthouse today. Again, this is the prosecutor who may be on the verge of indicting former President Donald Trump, something that would be unprecedented. With multiple sources telling our team that Bragg is planning to bring back the grand jury tomorrow to keep up their work. Remember, today there was this kind of mysterious pause in the proceedings. The grand jurors were told they didn't need to come in, even on a day when there was some speculation that perhaps this might be the day that they could vote on potential charges against Mr. Trump in an investigation into alleged hush money payments that he made to former adult film star Stormy Daniels. The former president denies he did anything wrong, but we're also hearing about another case involving Mr. Trump, one that experts think has some more legal teeth. The case about how he handled or mishandled classified documents found here at his home in Mar-a-Lago. A source tells NBC News, and this is a critical piece of information, that a judge is siding with the special counsel investigating Mr. Trump, Jack Smith. You see him there. Why? Well, the judge says the Justice Department has enough evidence to establish that the former president committed a crime and may have obstructed justice. Vaughn Hilliard is outside Mar-a-Lago. He is down in West Palm Beach for us. Let me start with these 2 buckets of news, right? Bucket number 1, news out of Manhattan. Looks like the grand jury is on track to be back on track and meet again tomorrow. What should we be looking for? How can we read those tea leaves?
Right. The question is, did potentially Alvin Bragg use today to put together a draft indictment, essentially to bring forward to the grand jury tomorrow to ultimately approve or reject potential charges that he may have outlined against Donald Trump? Or could he have maybe spent the day preparing potential additional witnesses? This grand jury proceedings are secret. We don't know what he has planned for tomorrow, but charges could be potentially voted on by that grand jury tomorrow. That is why there are still a lot of outstanding questions. Of course, it's Donald Trump and allies who have tried to fill this airwave gap here by suggesting that the Alvin Bragg case is crumbling. Of course, they are not privy to the evidence or even the testimony that has been potentially presented against Donald Trump. Michael Cohen has been insistent that there is corroborating evidence to back up his claims. So really the question is, what does Alvin Bragg have and what is his plan tomorrow if, in fact, those grand jurors are welcome back in lower Manhattan, Hallie.
So let me take bucket number 2 now, Vaughn, another bucket that you know well. This is on the special counsel investigation into the way that Donald Trump handled or not classified documents, right? And this, frankly, rather explosive news that a judge has determined that the DOJ has established that there is evidence to maybe charge him with a crime. It means that there is going to be a requirement that a key figure in this case hands over documents. That could all happen very soon. What's interesting here is we have these 2 cases, right? There's 3 altogether, but there's the one that we're talking about on the hush money payments. Fine. There's the other one that experts say on classified documents actually has more sort of a more muscular potential legal footing. That's why that is so significant and potentially even more problematic for Donald Trump than what's happening in Manhattan.
And Hallie, we're talking about potential obstruction of justice. I was here outside of Mar-a-Lago last August. That is when the FBI went into his private club, raided it, and found more than 100 classified documents. We're talking about national security records. And why was that event significant? Well, the Department of Justice says because 2 months prior, it was Trump's attorney that signed a document saying and testifying that all of the classified documents that had been in possession of Donald Trump here at Mar-a-Lago upon leaving the White House had been turned over to the Department of Justice. But when the FBI came in here, what did they find? More than 100 classified documents. So what will Evan Corcoran, Trump's own attorney, going before the Department of Justice and testifying mean? Well, number one, he is also supposed to turn over notes and even recordings. These could be potentially audio recordings between him and Donald Trump. He was serving as Trump's attorney around this year, and that is where did Donald Trump, the question is, either direct Evan Corcoran, his own attorneys, to move classified documents and hide them from the Department of Justice? Or did Trump's attorney, Evan Corcoran, actually believe that they had turned over all the relevant documents to the Department of Justice? And he was himself surprised when the FBI went in August and found a plethora of others that he was unaware of, but potentially Donald Trump may have been. Those are the questions that we are waiting to see come out of this potential testimony from Trump's own attorney, Hallie.
Lots of movements and potential movements over the next 48 hours in both of those things. Vaughn Hilliard, thank you so much, live for us in West Palm. So listen, are we almost at the end of these interest rate hikes that are putting more pressure on your budget and on banks? The latest word from the Federal Reserve is maybe, but it really depends on if inflation starts to ease up. In the last couple of hours, actually, we've seen the markets not super thrilled with the Fed's decision to raise interest rates by 0.25%. You see red across the board. The Dow took a late dive down like 500 points. So now rates are hovering right now, interest rates around 5%. The highest they've been since fall of 2007. For context, kids born around then would be in high school now. That's when the last financial crisis was just starting to heat up. What Fed Chair Jay Powell wants to do is stop another crisis from happening, but a lot has changed since he promised senators 2 weeks ago he would stay the course. Specifically, the collapse of 2 big U.S. banks, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature Bank. And there's been pressure on smaller banks, both here and overseas. Here's the thing. The Fed is hinting there's only going to be one more rate hike this year, but Powell's saying to get there, costs have got to come down.
Inflation remains too high, and the labor market continues to be very tight. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone.
So yes, inflation is going down. It's now at 6%. That was the latest report. But the number the Fed wants to get to, that's on the bottom there. He wants that 6 to become a 2. And until it is, he's not going to close the door on maybe hiking rates yet again. Brian Chung is joining us now. And Brian, help us translate Jay Powell into plain English here when he says, hey, the word you got to focus on is that we're going from ongoing rate hikes to some rate hikes. That means fewer rate hikes, right?
Yeah, that is the interpretation, because prior to this meeting, the expectation was that the Fed might have to do a bunch of interest rate hikes to take care of that high inflation. But the challenge here is that those banking blowups that we've seen over the past few weeks are going to make that harder for the central bank, because if they lift interest rates too high too fast, that could make other banks blow up, because one of the dominoes to fall that led to Silicon Valley Bank's collapse was higher interest rates. It wasn't the whole reason. There was mismanagement with regards to bets on those interest rates, but it was one of those reasons, which is why the Fed went by the smallest increment it can do today, which is 0.25%. And that is something very interesting because the Fed also had projections alongside the announcement that said they might only do another one of those and then cap it for the rest of the year. So you do see kind of the off-ramp here for those interest rate hikes, although, of course, as the Fed chair said, it's going to depend on how the data come in.
I want to show this chart showing interest rates over the last 50 years. I want people to look at these red lines here. Those are recessions, right? So when rates get high, look at those spikes. You see recessions kick in, and then the rates drop. How much is the Fed thinking about this, Brian? In other words, that if they keep raising rates, it could push us into a recession.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to recall the phrase hard landing. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
When the concern is that, well, as the Fed makes borrowing costs higher, it actually flips the economy into a recession. Now, for what it's worth, those red lines that you just saw after each of those rate hike cycles is the record, if you will, the track record for the Federal Reserve in successfully pulling off interest rate hikes without tipping the economy into a recession, getting inflation down while also not substantially getting the unemployment rate much higher. The Fed does not have a good track record of doing that. So as we talk about what's happening here, again, that's kind of entering the fold here. You do wonder if the recession odds are a little bit higher because of the issues that we're seeing in the banking sector. But the Federal Reserve, for its part, saying, look, we have to do whatever we can to try to get inflation down. That's the reason why we're still hiking interest rates.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Some new reaction coming into us tonight from Florida's biggest advocacy group, calling the move by Governor Ron DeSantis in that state to try to expand the so-called Don't Say Gay law is, in their words, government power being perverted. This is a proposal put forward by DeSantis, the Republican governor, that would basically take the law that bans schools from teaching about sexual orientation or gender identity in K through third grades, to all grades, right? So it would expand it to cover everybody up through high school, K through 12 in public schools. This is a law, remember, that got major backlash nationally last year. Critics said it marginalized the LGBTQ plus community. But Governor DeSantis and other Republicans have said it should be parents, not teachers, talking with kids about these kinds of topics. You know that Florida has been in many ways the epicenter of these so-called culture war issues that we've seen play out. Governor Ron DeSantis has put himself at the center of that epicenter, right? He's speculating. There is speculation that he's going to run for president and announce that sometime in the next few months. Gwyneth Paltrow is joining us now. So, Gwyneth, help us understand big picture. This is a vote set for next month in front of the Board of Education in Florida. It's gotten backlash, including from Disney, by the way, which is now set to hold its own sort of gay rights summit in Florida in September.
Correct, Hallie. So we were just mentioning about Equality Florida. We spoke with them minutes ago, and they, of course, had this long statement to share about how they feel with this change, right? So initially, the law last year only included students between kindergarten and third grade. That now the Department of Education here in the state is trying to expand it to students up to through 12th grade. That statement released by Equality Florida also adding that the DeSantis administration is now saying the quiet part out loud, basically. They're saying they believe that it's never appropriate to acknowledge the existence of LGBTQ people and our contributions to society in schools. Now, this vote set to take place on April 19th would be within the Department of Education, the state board's Department of Education. And a lot of the appointees that are members of this board were appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis or former Republican Governor Rick Scott. So you can imagine what will happen when that vote comes into place for this rule to be extended. Now, we have to look at what's happened in Florida. That original law was approved last year with a state assembly that essentially supports anything that Ron DeSantis brings up when it comes to this agenda. And then, of course, it's interesting, you mentioned Disney, to see what kind of reaction we can see from Disney. Originally, that fight between Ron DeSantis and Disney last year happened because the company publicly opposed that law. We've reached out to Disney to see if they have any comment about the change in the rule to that law, which extends it to students up through 12th grade, waiting to hear back from the company. Though what we can say about them is that they are dealing with some change already, right? Because now Ron DeSantis has appointed a new board of supervisors that overlooks that special district in which Disney World is located. So they are trying to accommodate to those changes that were already imposed by the state. So one could think that maybe Disney will stay out of this one and remain maybe perhaps quieter as they try to accommodate to these changes that were imposed by Ron DeSantis and the state assembly.
Gwyneth, thank you very much for that breakdown. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, the second day of Gwyneth Paltrow's high-profile ski crash trial. bring in doctors to the stand, what they're saying about the alleged injuries. Plus, what do some pretty famous whiskey bottles and this dog toy have in common? Both of them were proverbially at the Supreme Court today. We'll explain why. Coming up in the 5 Things. Stay with us. So right now you're looking at live pictures from inside the courtroom. That's it, on the right side of your screen, where actress Gwyneth Paltrow is having this high-profile ski crash trial as we speak. This is the second witness of the day, a doctor being questioned about the alleged injuries that came when Paltrow and another skier crashed into each other on a Utah ski slope. The question, of course, is who crashed into whom? Today's first witness, who is also a doctor, went into the details of how the plaintiff in this case, Terry Sanderson, how his injuries affected him. Listen.
The ability to function at a high level was lost for Terry.
Today started off with Paltrow's attorney calling out a new camera that was placed in court.
We have a new camera pointed directly at my client, right there on the right.
The trial's over a ski crash in Utah in 2016. Terry Sanderson, who's on your left, says Gwyneth Paltrow, who's on your right, crashed into him and hurt him. But Paltrow says, no, that's not what happened. She says he hit her. Let's bring in legal expert Danny Savalos. Help us understand the legal strategy here, Danny.
There's not much of a strategy. This is a straightforward personal injury case. Plaintiff says that Gwyneth Paltrow ran into him skiing, and Gwyneth Paltrow says in her counterclaim that no, it was the plaintiff's fault and he ran into me. So this is really going to be a factual determination. Whoever has the better witnesses, whoever's more believable, that's the side that will win, because there is no middle ground. There is no way to split the difference here. You either believe one story or you believe the other.
So if it's so straightforward and just a simple personal injury, he said, she said, why is it in like every newspaper and every headline?
Because it's Gwyneth Paltrow. And this is not a typical lawsuit that you see arising out of ski accidents, although they do happen. The key is defendants, individual defendants, normally don't get sued unless they have either a good insurance policy, like you see in motor vehicle cases, or they're really, really rich. And you see that a lot in assault cases. This is not an assault case, but a negligence case where plaintiff's attorneys must have thought, well, this is somebody with what we call deep pockets. She can pay a judgment. We'll go forward, even if, and this is my opinion, the liability side of this case is a little spotty.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much for that analysis. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the federal government is outlining a plan today to change up the nation's organ transplant system. It's had a lot of problems, like organs that have been damaged or thrown away, long wait times, for example. The new plan would almost double how much funding the agency gets, and it would give patients more up-to-date info. More than 100,000 people in this country are on the waiting list for an organ transplant. 17 people die every day waiting for one. Number 2, the CDC says 3 people have died and 4 people had their eyeballs removed because of a very rare bacterial infection linked to contaminated eye drops. The agency says they've identified dozens of patients in 16 states with this type of bacteria. It's resistant to most antibiotics. Most of those people reported using eye drops before having problems, but Ezra Care Artificial Tears was the most reported. That type of drop has since been recalled. Some other ones have been recalled as well. Number 3, dog toys with a, well, let's just say it, with a number 2 theme, a feces theme, have been at the center of a Supreme Court showdown. The question in front of these justices, again, the nation's highest court, is whether the court is going to side with Jack Daniels or Bad Spaniels. That's on your left. That's the dog toy shaped like the whiskey bottle. Jack Daniels says the toy violates trademark protections, but there seems to be some agreement on the bench that an appeals court decision in favor of the dog toy was decided incorrectly. Not clear how this ruling will affect trademark law, but despite the subject material, if you will, this is going to have a big impact maybe on trademark stuff. We're going to watch it. Number 4, sugary and fatty snacks can literally change your brain chemistry and create a long-lasting preference for foods that are less healthy. According to a new study, researchers found even a little bit of this kind of stuff can activate your dopamine system. Makes you crave motivation or reward. You keep doing it. And number 5, a Law & Order SVU superfan got the surprise of a lifetime. She was getting on a plane wearing her SVU t-shirt featuring Olivia Benson, and guess who she ran into? The real-life Olivia Benson, Mariska Hargitay, she took a picture, put it on the Instagram. They took some pictures together afterward. That is just like a nice little moment. We love Mariska Hargitay here. Good for her. When we come back, the TikTok showdown hitting a make-or-break moment. How the company's CEO plans to convince Congress the app is safe. We've got a lot more looking ahead to tomorrow's very high-profile hearing next. TikTok is getting on offense tonight here in Washington with a bunch of creators descending on the nation's capital, joining a few lawmakers to rally on the Hill just within the last maybe 30, 40 minutes or so. Let me play for you what one of these members of Congress defending TikTok had to say.
In terms of TikTok's behavior and its risk to national security, it poses about the same threat that companies like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter pose. So let's not marginalize and target TikTok.
So that's Congressman Jamal Bowman, who's become the highest profile ally, if you will, yet of TikTok on Capitol Hill. And you can see a bunch of TikTokers, maybe some that are landing on your For You page, who are here in D.C. ahead of very high-profile testimony tomorrow from the company's head. TikTok's promising to protect U.S. user data, promising to keep the app safe, especially for minors, for kids, to stay independent and to be transparent. I want to bring in now Julie Sirkin. And Julie, you know, there's a lot at stake here, and TikTok knows it. They have ramped up their lobbying. There's some growing concern now among some Democrats that a ban could actually alienate young voters. One Harvard student used TikTok to rally support for Joe Biden in 2020 and is now telling NBC News if they went ahead with banning TikTok, it would feel like a slap in the face to a lot of young Americans.
Yeah, exactly, Hallie. And I was watching part of this press conference actually on TikTok because one of the influencers was live streaming it. And that's exactly the point she was making and all of the comments were making. She actually said, we put President Biden in the White House. We delivered him the votes. And that's a message that's got to resonate with some Democrats up here. You saw 3 progressives, 2 joining Bowman, who you heard from at the top there. He tried to kind of stick a fork in this argument that it's a national security risk by saying, look, what about Facebook? What about Twitter? What about all the misinformation we saw from them in the 2016 election? But I had a Senate intelligence source actually saying, pushing back on that, saying it's not a fair comparison. TikTok is owned in some way by the Chinese government. They're responsible to answer to the Chinese Communist Party, whereas Facebook, at the end of the day, is a U.S.-based company and answers to the U.S. government here. So sort of shedding some separation between the two platforms there. But this is just so fascinating here because in a lot of ways, these TikTok creators did a lot of the work for this TikTok CEO for him ahead of that testimony tomorrow by coming up here, by sharing their message. We heard from small business owners on TikTok. One woman actually said 95% of her business, of her orders come from TikTok, and they just can't move to another platform. One of the creators that I was talking to said, we don't want to move to another platform. We don't like that house with those decorations over there, is how she put it. So this is just a fascinating debate here. But unfortunately, those 3 progressive lawmakers appear to be the only ones standing behind these creators ahead of that TikTok CEO testifying tomorrow, because everyone else up here is saying, listen, this is a bigger national security risk than anything. We know the Department of Justice opened an investigation into how they potentially target American citizens and even journalists. So this is something that is not just going to go away because TikTok influencers descended up here. I want you to take a listen and kind of watch on your screen some of the videos that these influencers were putting out today while they were up here. Watch. See some of them going around here in the first one. They were touring the Capitol saying that we've never heard other influencers be up here. But you also heard from others who were trying to go door to door, meet with lawmakers, just trying to get someone to listen to them and say, hey, we're on this platform for a bigger reason than just to create dance videos.
Give us a preview of tomorrow, Julie. What's the biggest thing you're going to be looking for in this very high-profile hearing?
Well, look, it's the first time the TikTok CEO is going to be testifying before Congress. And look, he's coming before a Republican-led panel, the Energy Committee. And there is a lot of focus here on China as a whole between Democrats and Republicans. And that's certainly going to be a big focus of tomorrow's hearing. We know the CEO kind of went on this quote unquote charm offensive. He put out new policies that he's going to be putting in place to make sure that the platform, he says, is not compromised for national security risks. But that is 100% going to be the main talking point, not just for Republicans, but Democrats too.
Julie Sirkin, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Speaking of tomorrow, by the way, Congressman Jamal Bowman is going to join us right here live for our Newsmaker segment in the hours after that hearing. Don't miss it tomorrow right here on NBC News Now. Coming up here on the show, how the U.S. is getting ready for potential war on the Korean Peninsula and why it might be running out of options to deal with a nuclear threat from North Korea. We've got an in-depth behind-the-scenes look from Seoul live next. North Korea today test-firing cruise missiles off its east coast in response to what Kim Jong-un sees as growing aggression. His words from South Korea and its allies. That's coming just days after North Korea simulated a nuclear attack on South Korea Monday. Which brings us to the original in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's these latest missile launches by North Korea. They're in response to the biggest war games on the peninsula between the U.S. and South Korea in more than 5 years. Our own Josh Letterman was there. He's in the middle of the action, getting a behind-the-scenes look at these live fire exercises, at the Black Hawks they've got going on. Watch.
Not far from the North Korean border, U.S. and South Korean troops are practicing for a war they hope they'll never fight. Over 11 days, the two militaries training as one, firing live artillery, flying attack helicopters, and practicing amphibious operations. War games the U.S. says are defensive and no threat to North Korea unless it attacks first. The U.S. and South Korea haven't conducted war games on this scale in 6 years. But after recent North Korean provocations, including just today, military officials say they are more important than ever. Do you feel ready if a conflict were to break out here tonight?
100%, absolutely.
In the middle of today's exercises, North Korea launching multiple cruise missiles into the Sea of Japan, a searing reminder of what's at stake. Last year, North Korea test-fired more than 70 missiles, the most ever. Recent imagery from North Korean state media suggests the North is using underground silos. Military analysts say that could allow it to launch ballistic missiles with no notice.
In the past, this was developmental testing, but now I think they're actually doing exercises. So nuclear warfighting exercises, ballistic missile attack exercises, bomber run exercises. So I don't call these developmental tests anymore.
After decades of tensions, the U.S. appears to have largely run out of options to deal with Pyongyang's growing nuclear threat. This South Korean commander says we'll establish a decisive battle posture to fight and win. These military exercises are taking place just 10 miles from the demilitarized zone. North Korea calls them rehearsals for an invasion.
Nothing motivates a U.S. soldier to be all they can be more than sleeping 10 miles from an adversary. And when that adversary is firing ballistic missiles, it provides an incredible focus to this training.
This week, Kim Jong-un overseeing what North Korea called a simulation of a nuclear counterstrike against U.S. and South Korean forces. At the North Korean leader's side, his daughter, Kim Ju-ae, believed to be about 10 years old. Until recently, her existence was a mere rumor. Now, North Korea is putting her front and center, fueling intense speculation about whether she's being groomed to one day replace her father. Almost nothing is known about Kim Ju-ae, but South Korean intelligence believes she's being homeschooled and is an avid horseback rider. Yoo Sang-boom is a South Korean lawmaker on the National Assembly's Intelligence Committee. He says 8 of the 10 times Kim Ju-ae has been seen publicly have been at military functions. He says with North Korea suffering food shortages, South Korean intelligence is picking up signs that starving North Koreans are growing angry at how the leader's daughter appears well-dressed and well-fed. North Korea experts say it's too soon to tell what role she'll play in the secretive nation's future, or what her public debut means about the North's military intentions, leaving the world once again guessing.
Josh Letterman is joining us now. So, Josh, you know, what's interesting here is the way that this is either, this is sounding silly, but like either different or not different. And by that, I mean, there's been always talk for years about tensions with North Korea, What you're hearing now is that this may actually be not just more of the same.
Exactly, Hallie. Even though a lot of people may be tuning these out because these missile tests are so ubiquitous, military analysts who study them say that with every single missile launch, North Korea is getting better at developing missiles that are faster to launch, bigger, and harder for the U.S. and other countries to detect. Because remember, North Korea already has dozens of nuclear warheads. What they may not yet have is the ability to attach them to a missile capable of hitting South Korea or the United States. But they are getting closer to that as well. And in the meantime, Hallie, South Koreans are losing confidence in that strategic deterrence from the U.S. with new polling showing that about 70% of South Koreans, they now support developing their own nuclear weapons to really defend themselves, something that clearly the United States doesn't want to see, Hallie.
Josh Letterman live for us there in Seoul, South Korea. Josh, thank you for being there for us live tonight. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day. And because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our foreign desk has done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. From Poland, Prince William making a surprise trip there today to thank British and Polish troops supporting the war in Ukraine. He says he appreciates their work. He went to a Warsaw center that's housing recent arrivals from Ukraine as well. In the UK, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is telling lawmakers he didn't lie to them about that so-called Partygate scandal. They grilled him straight up over whether he on purpose misled Parliament when he denied having parties at Downing Street in the early days of the pandemic. Those parties broke lockdown rules there. If the committee finds Johnson did lie on purpose, he could be suspended, maybe even lose his seat in Parliament. And out of Hong Kong, public screenings of the new British horror film Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey have been called off. Ugh. Why? The film's distributor did not give a reason nor respond to requests for more info. Winnie the Pooh has been kind of a touchy subject in China for the last decade or so because people have used the character as kind of a meme to, in essence, make fun of the Chinese president, Xi Jinping. References to Winnie the Pooh have been censored on Chinese social media. So if you've been noticing your drugstore or pharmacy is out of some of the stuff that you need lately, you're not alone because a new Senate report out today says drug shortages are way up. We're talking about stuff that you need for your kids, like Tylenol for cold and flu. If you have ADHD, Adderall, there's a shortage. Amoxicillin, an important antibiotic, is running out of supply, right? Overall, drug shortages are up about 30% from 2021 to 2022. Nearly 300 different drugs by the end of last year. That's a problem for doctors and patients. One senator even calling out national security risks. Dr. Kavita Patel is joining us now for more on this. So a couple of things here. We'll first start with why this is happening in the first place.
Yeah, so this is a complex web to try to figure out why this is happening.
Untangle the web, because we don't, let's please, girl, you know.
And it's taken decades, but we know that part of it is supply chain because these are active ingredients that are primarily manufactured across offshores and not on the United States soil. So in order to make these drugs, we rely on countries outside of the U.S. to put these drugs together and then ship them here. And then once they're shipped here, we don't actually have visibility into how they get from one container to a store, through a hospital, and all the processes in between.
What's also important here is it's not just hospitals, right? So it's not like if you're just sick enough to go to the hospital that then you experience potentially a shortage there. If you go to your local, I mean, I'll call it CVS, Walgreens, whatever, wherever you're going, Dwayne Reed, any pharmacy. This is stuff that people are using every day.
Yeah, these are common everyday medications, but they're very critical. And they put doctors such as myself in a bad situation when we can't get them. We prescribe them. Patients will tell us we can't get this. And then we have to choose an alternative that might not be the best option.
I was just going to ask, so what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, so we have to quickly choose an alternative. And most of the times, the alternatives aren't necessarily the best medication in class. Take antibiotics, for example. We're often prescribing antibiotics because of the shortages that aren't necessarily the best ones for the infections we're trying to treat. And people don't realize how common this is, as you mentioned. And it didn't just start in the pandemic. It's been a decades-long problem.
Well, you've been working on it for years here. Do you agree that it is potentially a national security risk?
It is. And we've been flagging this as a national security risk for years and years, even before COVID. And it's primarily because look at what happened during COVID that we all witnessed. When we couldn't get vaccines, when we couldn't get gloves, when we couldn't get masks, that created a cascade of events that made an incredible shortfall shortfall and cost lives, quite honestly. So that was a dramatic display, but that's happening every day with some of these critical shortages.
It's scary stuff. Dr. Gwyneth Patel, thank you for unwinding sort of what's behind it and how we get out of it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Still to come, Gisele Bündchen speaking for the first time, I should say, about how it all went down with her very famous ex, Tom Brady, why she says one big rumor about their split is totally fake. Tonight, we are hearing from Gisele Bündchen, that super famous supermodel now, for the first time since her big divorce from her famous ex, Tom Brady. She's telling Vanity Fair exclusively that she didn't give Brady an ultimatum to choose her or the NFL, saying in her words, what's been said is one piece of a much bigger puzzle, and that the whole thing is, and I'm quoting here, not so black and white. Okay, so let's bring in Emily Aketa on this. And Emily, pull back and think about the bigger picture, as I know you are for a second here. We're talking about, I would say, the most famous football player right now, one of the highest paid in the highest profile sport in this country, and an internationally known, also extremely famous supermodel, right? I mean, there is a bigger sort of business perspective that comes into play when you're talking about this, frankly, big divorce here. What else are we hearing from her? Because what's also interesting is she's been described in some quarters as did she, quote unquote, Yoko Ono Tom Brady? And now she's telling her own story.
Yeah, that's right. These are, I guess, the goats of their respective careers. Both Gisele Bündchen and Tom Brady, long seen as this kind of golden couple. And after months of speculation, of headlines, Gisele Bündchen is now getting the chance to break her silence and set the story straight. One of the most circulated rumors we heard leading up to this was, okay, she gave Tom Brady an ultimatum. You either choose football or our marriage. Well, she calls that, in this exclusive interview with Vanity Fair, she calls those characterizations, quote, very hurtful and the craziest thing I've ever heard. Also underscoring her support for Tom Brady, telling Vanity Fair, listen, I have always cheered for him and I would continue forever. And Hallie, she also didn't try to conceal her emotion. This was a thorough interview that took place over 2 days at her Costa Rica home. She broke into tears throughout the process. She talks about the heartbreak. She describes their split, compares it to death. But then she also goes on to say it's now a new beginning. It's like a rebirth. And so you get this sense that she's hopeful for what's to come. She talks about different things that she's hoping to pursue. One of them, we remember she retired from the runway back in 2015. She was the highest paid model throughout the entire world at points in her career. Well, she says she is not denying she's somewhat open to the idea of unretiring from the runway. So potentially that's something to watch there. She's looking into opening a wellness center. And then also she even mentioned potentially playing a Super Bowl. I mean, I could see her on the big screen. She does practice jiu-jitsu, so things to come.
Super interesting here as it relates to something else that's newsy, and that is the collapse of FTX, of course, that crypto exchange run by Sam Bankman-Fried, who's now, of course, facing charges. She made ads she invested in FTX, and now she's talking about it for the first time, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the couple, they shot advertisements for crypto, and she even served, according to the article, as the head of environmental and social initiatives for FTX. She briefly addressed its collapse, saying, quote, I'm no different than everyone else that trusted the hype. She told reporters she legally can't talk about the specifics, but went on to say she believed FTX to be a, quote, sound and great thing based on what my financial advisors told me. Hallie, she hopes justice is served in that regard.
Emily Aketa, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And that does it for us for this hour. We will have more for you, of course, tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on NBC News Now. Gang, we cover it all, right? From tornadoes in California to even Gisele Bündchen. We've got more when Top Story picks up in the next couple of seconds. Jacob Soboroff in for Tom Yamas tonight. Do not miss it. And then, of course, right after that, Gotti Schwartz with Stay Tuned Now. All of it right here on the network you are streaming. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.